You were never too sensitive. You were trained to feel everything, trained to notice the slightest shift in mood, the quiet tension behind words, the sadness hiding in a smile. Because somewhere early in life you learned that emotional awareness was not a gift, but a requirement for safety. And this is the hidden pain of high empaths. What once protected you now quietly consumes you. As a child, you didn't become empathetic because the world was gentle. You became empathetic because it was unpredictable, because someone's emotional state determined whether the room felt safe or dangerous, because peace depended on your ability to anticipate, soothe, and adjust. And so your nervous system learned hypervigilance as a default setting, keeping your mind alert and your body braced while your own needs faded into the background. Psychologically, this often begins with emotional neglect or parentification, where you were never asked what you felt, or worse, you learned that your feelings were burdensome, so you became the emotional caretaker, the one who listened, regulated, absorbed, and held space long before you had the capacity to hold yourself. Over time, empathy fused with identity, and love became conditional. You are valued when you are useful, accepted when you are accommodating, safe when you are quiet. The brain adapts to this by overactivating threat detection systems while suppressing rest and self-reflection, which is why stillness can feel unsettling and rest can trigger guilt, because vigilance once kept you connected. As an adult, this shows up everywhere. You attract emotionally unavailable partners because your nervous system confuses intensity with intimacy. You struggle with boundaries because saying no feels like abandonment. You overfunction at work, anticipating problems no one asked you to solve. You suppress anger because it once threatened connection. You intellectualize emotions instead of feeling them, and despite being surrounded by people, you feel unseen because you are known for what you give, not for who you are. The deepest wound beneath all of this is simple and devastating, the fear that if you stop being emotionally useful, you will no longer be loved. Carl Jung warned that what remains unconscious becomes fate, and for high empaths, unconscious empathy becomes a life of self-erasure, where authenticity is traded for acceptance, and rest is postponed indefinitely. You lose yourself not in dramatic collapse, but in quiet concessions, listening when you need to be heard, holding space while your own emotions remain unheld, saying, "I'm fine," until you forget what fine even means. Philosophers like Seneca spoke of unnecessary suffering. But for the empath, suffering becomes internalized as responsibility, carrying guilt that was never yours and pain that was never meant to be carried alone. Healing does not require becoming less empathetic. It requires redirecting empathy inward, learning that compassion without boundaries is self-abandonment, and that awareness without self-inclusion is another form of neglect. Inner child work asks you to meet the part of you that learned love had to be earned and to offer what was missing. Permission to rest, to need, to take up space. Shadow work invites you to reclaim disowned emotions, anger, desire, frustration, not as threats, but as signals of life returning to itself. Nervous system regulation teaches your body what your mind may already know. That nothing collapses when you stop performing, that safety can exist without constant monitoring, that softness does not equal danger. The quiet revolution for high empaths is choosing presence over hypervigilance, boundaries over guilt, and wholeness over usefulness, remembering that your empathy was never meant to cost you your life force. The goal is not to be fixed, but to become whole.